The Grand Pearl Hotel stood tall, like a giant jewel box in the middle of the city. Its glass doors sparkled in the sunlight. Inside, everything shined. The marble floors looked like frozen ice, the golden lights hung from the ceiling like stars, and soft music played from invisible speakers. Rich people walked through the lobby wearing expensive suits and dresses that rustled like leaves. Their shoes clicked importantly on the smooth floor. At the front desk stood Mr. Raymond Chase, the hotel manager. He wore a black suit, so crisp it could cut paper. His hair was slicked back with gel, and his teeth were perfectly white. He looked at every person who entered his hotel, deciding in 1 second if they belonged or not. His eyes were like cameras, scanning for money and importance. The afternoon was busy. Businessmen rushed to meetings. Families with designer luggage rolled past. Everyone looked like they had stepped out of a magazine. Then the doors opened again. An old couple walked in slowly, holding hands. The woman wore a faded blue dress that had been washed so many times the color had turned pale, like the sky before a storm. Her shoes were clean but old, with cracks in the leather like tiny rivers. Her gray hair was pulled back in a simple bun. She carried a small cloth bag that had been stitched and restitched with different colored threads. The man beside her wore brown pants with patches on the knees, and a white shirt that was clean but wrinkled. His jacket had once been nice, but now the elbows were thin and shiny from use. His shoes were polished, though they were nearly worn through at the bottom. His face had deep lines, like a map of all the years he had lived. They walked slowly, carefully, their hands clasped together. The lobby seemed to freeze. Guests turned to stare. A woman in a fur coat whispered to her husband. 2 businessmen stopped talking and watched. A little girl pointed until her mother pulled her hand down. Mr. Chase's eyes landed on the couple. His mouth twisted into a smile that wasn't kind at all. The old couple walked to the front desk. Their steps were quiet, dignified. The man's hand never left his wife's hand. "Good afternoon," the old man said. His voice was soft but steady. "We would like a room, please." Mr. Chase didn't move. He looked them up and down slowly, dramatically, like he was inspecting garbage. Then he laughed. It wasn't a small laugh. It was loud, echoing through the lobby like thunder. Other staff members looked over. Guests stopped walking. "A room," Mr. Chase said, still laughing. "Here? At the Grand Pearl Hotel." The old woman's cheeks turned pink, but she kept her eyes down. Her husband squeezed her hand gently. "Yes," the old man said calmly. "A room for 2 nights, if possible." Mr. Chase leaned forward on the desk, his smile growing meaner. "Sir, do you understand where you are? This is a Grand Pearl Hotel, the finest hotel in the entire city. Our cheapest room costs more money than you probably see in a month." A security guard near the door straightened up, watching. "Our rooms have silk sheets," Mr. Chase continued, his voice dripping with cruelty. "Marble bathrooms, views of the whole city. We serve champagne that costs more than your entire wardrobe." Some guests nearby chuckled. A young woman in a red dress covered her mouth, smiling. The old woman's grip on her husband's hand tightened. Her eyes stayed down, but a single tear rolled down her wrinkled cheek. The old man saw the tear. Something changed in his face. His jaw tightened, his shoulders straightened. But his voice remained gentle. "We understand the cost," he said. "We would like a room." Mr. Chase's smile disappeared. Now he just looked angry. "I don't think you heard me," he said coldly. "This lobby is not a shelter. It's not a place for people like you. You're making our real guests uncomfortable." He waved his hand dismissively, like shooing away a fly. The old man didn't move. "We are not asking for charity," the old man said quietly. "We are asking for a room. We can pay." Mr. Chase snorted. "Pay? With what? Buttons? Pennies saved in a jar?" The security guard was walking closer now, his heavy boots thudding on the marble. More guests had gathered, watching the scene like it was a show. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked amused. A businessman with a briefcase shook his head and muttered, "They should go to a motel." The old woman finally looked up. Her eyes were watery but proud. She didn't speak, but her gaze was steady. looking directly at Mr. Chase. He sneered at her. "Madam, please, don't embarrass yourself further. This establishment has standards. We can't have beggars wandering through our lobby. It ruins the atmosphere." "We are not beggars," the old man said. His voice was still soft, but now it carried something else, something strong, like steel wrapped in velvet. Mr. Chase rolled his eyes. "Right, of course not." He snapped his fingers at the security guard. "Marcus, please escort these visitors to the exit. They seem confused about where they are." Marcus, the security guard, looked uncomfortable. He was a kind man with 3 children at home. He didn't like this, but Mr. Chase was his boss. "Sir, ma'am," Marcus said apologetically, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave." The old couple didn't move. The old man reached slowly into his jacket pocket. Mr. Chase tensed. "What are you doing?" From his pocket, the old man pulled out a wrinkled brown envelope. It was old, yellow with age, held together with a thin string wrapped around it multiple times. "Before we go," the old man said quietly, "I think you should see something." Mr. Chase crossed his arms. "I don't have time for—" "Please." The old woman spoke for the first time. Her voice was like honey, sweet, but with strength underneath. "Just look." Something in her tone made Mr. Chase pause. The old man carefully unwrapped the string from the envelope. His hand shook slightly, not from fear, but from age. He opened it gently, like it contained something precious. Inside were photographs. Old photographs, faded and creased. The old man laid the first one on the marble counter. Mr. Chase glanced down, ready to dismiss it. Then he froze. His eyes went wide. The photograph showed this very hotel, the Grand Pearl Hotel, but many years ago. The building looked newer. The trees outside were smaller. And standing in front of the hotel, smiling proudly, were 2 young people. A handsome young man in a fine suit, a beautiful young woman in an elegant dress. Mr. Chase looked at the photograph, then at the old couple, then back at the photograph. His face went pale, like all the blood had drained away. "No," he whispered. "It can't be." The lobby had gone completely silent. Everyone was watching. The old man placed a second photograph on the counter. This one showed a construction site, the hotel being built. The same young couple stood beside workers, pointing at blueprints, smiling with hope and excitement. A third photograph, a grand opening ceremony, ribbons being cut, champagne being poured. The young couple at the center of it all. Mr. Chase's hands were shaking now. "You," he stammered. You can't be." The old man looked at him with eyes that held decades of stories. "My name," he said quietly, "is Thomas Whitmore. This is my wife, Eleanor. 50 years ago, we built this hotel." The entire lobby gasped. Mr. Chase stumbled backward, bumping into the desk behind him. His mouth opened and closed like a fish pulled from water, but no words came out. The old man, Thomas Whitmore, carefully placed another photograph on the marble counter. This one showed the hotel's grand ballroom filled with people in fancy clothes, celebrating. Young Thomas and Eleanor stood in the center, cutting a massive cake shaped like the hotel itself. "Opening night," Thomas said softly, his finger touching the edge of the photograph gently, like it might crumble to dust. "We invited everyone in the city, rich and poor. We believe a hotel should welcome all people with dignity." Eleanor spoke now, her voice stronger. "We saved for 15 years to build this place." Thomas worked 3 jobs. He delivered newspapers at dawn, worked at a factory during the day, and cleaned office buildings at night. "I sewed clothes for neighbors and sold vegetables from our garden." A young desk clerk named Sarah had come closer, her eyes wide. She looked at the photographs, then at the old couple, then at Mr. Chase, who had turned the color of old milk. "Every penny we earned," Eleanor continued, "went into this dream. We wanted to create something beautiful, somewhere people could feel safe and special, no matter who they were." Thomas laid down another photograph. This one was different. It showed disaster. Smoke rising from a building. Fire trucks. People running. 25 years ago, Thomas said, his voice thick with old pain. "There was a terrible fire in the factory district. Our daughter worked there as a nurse, helping the workers." Eleanor's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away. She died saving 6 children, getting them out through the smoke. The lobby was so quiet you could hear the fountain in the corner trickling. A woman guest wiped her eyes with a handkerchief. "The hospital bills," Thomas continued, "for the children she saved, their families couldn't pay. So we paid every single bill. And then the funeral costs for all the workers who died. We couldn't let their families suffer alone. It took everything," Eleanor whispered. "Everything we had." Sarah, the young clerk, put her hand over her mouth. Tears ran down her cheeks. "We sold our share of the hotel to pay those bills," Thomas said. "We didn't tell anyone. We just left. We moved to a small town 3 hours away and started over. I got a job at a library. Eleanor taught piano lessons to children." Mr. Chase had sunk into a chair. His crisp suit suddenly looked too big for him. His perfect hair had fallen across his forehead. "But we never forgot this place," Eleanor said, looking around the lobby with eyes full of memory. "We built every inch of it with our own hands. Thomas laid tiles in this very floor. I painted the ceiling in the east wing. We planted those trees outside that are so tall now." An elderly businessman in the crowd stepped forward. His face was wrinkled with age, but his eyes were sharp. "I remember you," he said suddenly. "I was a young waiter here 50 years ago. You gave me a job when no one else would. I had dropped out of school. I had nothing." Thomas smiled, a real smile that made his whole face light up. "Michael? Little Michael Rodriguez." The businessman nodded, tears streaming down his face. "You and Mrs. Whitmore paid for me to go back to school. You told me I was smart enough for college. I own 3 restaurants now because you believed in me." More people began murmuring. The story was spreading to the crowd like ripples in water. Mr. Chase finally found his voice. It came out small and broken. I didn't know. The owner never told me about. I just managed the hotel. You thought we were nobody," Eleanor said quietly. "Not angry, just sad. You decided our worth by our clothes." Thomas placed his hand on the counter, his wedding ring, a simple gold band worn thin over 50 years, catching the light. "We came back today because it's our anniversary. 55 years married. We wanted to spend one night in the place we built together, to remember our daughter, to remember when we were young." A teenage girl in expensive designer clothes spoke up from the crowd, her voice shaking. "My grandmother told me about this hotel's founders. She said they were the kindest people she ever met. They gave jobs to people nobody else would hire. They were heroes." Mr. Chase stood up slowly. His legs seemed weak, like they might give out. His face had gone from pale to red with shame. "Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore, there are no words. I am so deeply, profoundly sorry." "Sorry isn't enough," said Marcus, the security guard. He stepped forward, his voice firm. "I almost threw them out. Me. I almost put my hands on the people who built this place and gave everything they had to help others." Sarah, the young clerk, was crying openly now. "I laughed," she admitted, her voice cracking. "When you first laughed at them, Mr. Chase, I smiled. I thought it was funny. I'm so ashamed." Thomas looked at them all, Mr. Chase, Marcus, Sarah, the gathered guests. His eyes were kind, not cruel. "The world teaches us to judge quickly," he said, "to decide who matters based on money and clothes and cars. But that's not truth. That's just fear." "Fear?" asked a young man in the crowd. Eleanor nodded. "Fear that if we treat everyone well, there won't be enough. Fear that being kind makes us weak. Fear that we'll lose our special place if we share it." Thomas pulled out one more photograph. This one was recent, just a few months old. It showed him and Eleanor in their small apartment, sitting on an old couch, holding hands, smiling at the camera. "We have very little now," Thomas said. "Our apartment is tiny. We eat simple food. We wear old clothes. But we have each other. We have our memories. We have the knowledge that we spend our money saving lives instead of buying things. He looked directly at Mr. Chase. What we don't have anymore is the need to feel superior to others. Mr. Chase's face crumpled. He actually fell to his knees right there on the marble floor, his expensive suit wrinkling. "Please forgive me," he begged. "Please. I was cruel. I was heartless. I treated you like garbage when you deserve worship. We don't want worship," Eleanor said firmly. "We just wanted respect. Basic human respect." Thomas helped Mr. Chase to his feet. The old man's strength surprised everyone. "Listen to me," Thomas said, looking into the manager's eyes. "We all make mistakes. What matters is what we do after we understand we were wrong." Mr. Chase nodded, tears running down his face, ruining his perfect appearance. "Can you change?" Eleanor asked him. "Can you teach your staff to see people, not clothes? To treat every human who walks through those doors with dignity?" "Yes," Mr. Chase whispered. "Yes, I swear it. I'll change everything. The policies, the training, the culture. I'll make this hotel what you wanted it to be again." Michael Rodriguez, the businessman, spoke up. "I'll help. I'll donate money for staff training on dignity and respect." The teenage girl raised her hand. "I'll volunteer. I'll help teach the staff." More voices joined in, guests offering help, staff members promising to do better. Thomas and Eleanor stood in the center of it all, holding hands, watching their old dream come back to life in a new way. Sarah stepped forward, her voice still shaky. "Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore, please. Our finest suite. The penthouse. It's yours. For as long as you want. No charge. It's the least we can do." Mr. Chase nodded eagerly. "Yes, please. The presidential suite. It has a view of the entire city. Silk sheets. A private balcony. A grand piano. Mrs. Whitmore, you could play again." Thomas and Eleanor looked at each other. A whole conversation happened in that glance. 55 years of love and understanding passing between them in a single moment. "We would like that," Thomas said finally, "but we will pay." "Please," Mr. Chase started. Eleanor held up her hand. "We will pay the fair price. Not because we must, but because we can. We saved money for this trip. It's our anniversary gift to each other." The respect in the room deepened. Here were people who could take charity but chose dignity instead. "However," Thomas added with a small smile, "we would appreciate your finest room." Mr. Chase practically ran to computer, his fingers flying over the keys. Mr. Chase printed out a key card with shaking hands. "The presidential suite on the top floor," he said, his voice full of respect now, not mockery. "It has everything. And Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore, I promise you, from this moment forward, this hotel will honor what you built." Thomas took the key card gently. "Thank you, but promises are just words. Actions are what matter." "You'll see action," Mr. Chase said firmly, "starting right now." He turned to face the entire lobby, the guests, the staff, everyone who had witnessed what happened. His voice rang out clear and strong. "Everyone, please listen. What happened here today can never happen again. I have been a fool. I judge people by their appearance. I forgot that every single person who walks through our doors deserves respect and kindness." Marcus, the security guard, nodded. Sarah wiped her eyes and stood straighter. Mr. Chase continued, "From this day forward, new rules. Every guest, no matter how they look, will be greeted with a smile and respect. Every staff member will attend training on dignity and compassion. And once a month, we will offer free rooms to families who need a safe place to stay but cannot afford it." The crowd erupted in applause. The sound filled the lobby like thunder. Eleanor smiled, her eyes shining with tears of joy now, not sadness. "That's exactly what we hoped for when we built this place 55 years ago." Michael Rodriguez stepped forward again. "I'll fund the free rooms program in memory of your daughter, who died saving children. We'll call it the Eleanor Whitmore Memorial Program." More applause, more tears, more promises. A little boy who had been watching everything tugged on his mother's sleeve. "Mommy, why is everyone crying if they're happy?" His mother knelt down and hugged him. Because sometimes, sweetheart, people remember how to be good again. And that's the most beautiful thing in the world. Mr. Chase personally escorted Thomas and Eleanor to the elevator. Marcus carried their small cloth bag like it was made of gold. Sarah ran ahead to make sure the presidential suite was perfect. As the elevator doors opened, Thomas turned back to the lobby. "One more thing," he called out. His voice was soft, but everyone stopped to listen. "We didn't come here for revenge or to embarrass anyone. We came because we believe people can change. We believe that kindness is stronger than cruelty. We believe that every person, rich or poor, young or old, dressed in silk or patches, has dignity that must be protected." Eleanor added, "And we believe that when someone makes a mistake, forgiveness can create something more beautiful than if the mistake never happened." The elevator doors closed softly. Up in the presidential suite, Thomas and Eleanor stood on the balcony, looking out at the city lights twinkling like stars. The room was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers, velvet curtains, a bed so soft it felt like sleeping on clouds. But what made them smile wasn't the luxury. It was the change they had sparked. "Do you think it will last?" Eleanor asked, resting her head on her husband's shoulder. Thomas wrapped his arm around her. "I think Mr. Chase learned something today that money can't buy. He learned what shame feels like. And sometimes shame could be a teacher if we let it." Eleanor looked up at the stars. "Our daughter would be proud." "Yes," Thomas whispered. "She would be." 3 months later, the Grand Pearl Hotel had transformed. Not the building. That was still beautiful marble and golden lights. But something deeper had changed, something you could feel the moment you walked through the doors. Mr. Chase stood at the front desk every morning now, greeting guests personally. He learned names. He asked about people's days. He trained his staff to see every person as valuable. The walls of the lobby now displayed photographs, old ones that Thomas and Eleanor had donated, pictures of the hotel being built, pictures of the grand opening, pictures of ordinary people who had worked there over the decades. And in the center, a bronze plaque, built by Thomas and Eleanor Whitmore with love, sacrifice, and a belief that every human deserves dignity. May we never forget. The Eleanor Whitmore Memorial Program had helped 53 families in just 3 months. Single mothers escaping dangerous situations, elderly people who needed surgery in the city, families whose homes had burned down. All of them stayed at the Grand Pearl Hotel, treated with the same respect as the richest guests. Sarah had become the program's coordinator. She met each family personally, made sure they felt welcome, and often played with the children in the lobby. Marcus now trained all security staff with a simple rule: protect everyone's dignity first. Everything else comes second. Michael Rodriguez had donated so much money that the hotel could help even more families. Other businesses in the city had joined, creating a network of support. And Thomas and Eleanor? They visited once a month, not as owners, not as celebrities, just as beloved friends. Staff members hugged them. Children drew pictures for them. Guests asked to hear their stories. One day, a young couple arrived at the hotel, wearing worn clothes and carrying backpacks. They looked tired and nervous. The new desk clerk, a young man named James, smiled warmly. "Welcome to the Grand Pearl Hotel. How can I help you today?" The young woman hesitated. We're on our honeymoon. We saved money for months. We probably can't afford much, but we wanted to stay somewhere special just for one night." James's smile grew bigger. "Congratulations on your marriage. Let me see what we have available." He checked the computer, and his eyes lit up. "You know what? Today is your lucky day. We have a beautiful room with a city view, and I can offer you a special rate that fits your budget." The young couple's faces flooded with relief and joy. As James handed them their key cards, he said, "Here at the Grand Pearl, we believe every guest deserves to feel special. Your love is just as valuable as anyone else's. Enjoy your stay." Watching from across the lobby, Mr. Chase smiled. He caught sight of Thomas and Eleanor, who had just arrived for their monthly visit. They had seen the whole interaction. Eleanor gave him a thumbs up. Thomas nodded with approval. Mr. Chase walked over to them. "I'm still learning," he admitted. Every day, I'm still learning. That's all any of us can do, Thomas said, shaking his hand warmly. That evening, Mr. Chase announced a new initiative. The hotel would partner with schools to teach children about kindness, respect, and seeing past appearances. They would share Thomas and Eleanor's story with the next generation. As the sun set over the city, Thomas and Eleanor sat in the hotel restaurant, sharing a simple meal. Around them, families laughed, couples held hands, business people made deals, and children played. Rich and poor, all mixed together, all treated the same. "We did good," Eleanor said softly. "We did very good," Thomas agreed. A waiter brought them dessert they hadn't ordered. 2 slices of chocolate cake with a candle on top. "Happy anniversary," Mr. Chase said, appearing at their table. "Every month, we celebrate the day you came back and changed everything." Thomas and Eleanor blew out the candle together, just like they had done 55 times before on their real anniversary. Their wish was simple, that kindness would spread like ripples in water, touching everyone, changing everything. And it did. The lesson is clear and powerful. Never judge someone by how they look. Clothes fade, money comes and goes, but dignity lasts forever. True worth isn't in bank accounts or designer labels. It's in how we treat each other, especially when we think no one important is watching. Mr. Chase learned that leadership isn't about power over people. It's about protecting their humanity. Every person who walks through your door, your store, your office, your life, they carry stories you cannot see. They have loved and lost. They have worked and sacrificed. They deserve respect simply because they exist. The Grand Pearl Hotel became famous not for its luxury, but for its heart. People travel from everywhere not just to sleep in fancy beds, but to experience a place where everyone mattered equally. Thomas and Eleanor proved that the most valuable investment isn't property or stocks. It's kindness. It grows in ways money never can, creating returns that last generations. And Mr. Chase? He became a different man, humble, compassionate, and wise. He taught other hotel managers what he learned. The movement spread to other cities, other businesses, other lives, all because 2 old people in worn clothes walked through a door and reminded the world of a simple truth. Dignity costs nothing, but it's worth everything. Kindness is never weakness, and humanity is the only currency that never loses value. If this story touched your heart, reminded you to treat everyone with respect, or taught you something valuable about human dignity and the power of second chances, please share it with others who need to hear it. Like this story, if you believe kindness can change the world. Subscribe to hear more stories that remind us what really matters in life. Because sometimes we all need these reminders to be better humans. Remember, the person you judge today might be the angel who saves you tomorrow. Treat everyone like they matter, because they do.